Well, hello there. It's another weekend update. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. That's always interesting on the weekends. But, there's a lot of, it's almost like, a tea kettle that's whistling. Sooner or later, she gonna blow.
Yeah.
Get her off the stove.
There's a lot that seems to be going on behind the scenes or under the surface. We have all this stuff with Hunter Biden this past week that the unexpected things, like they thought that rubber stamp deal was a done deal, and all of a sudden that thing exploded. We have President Trump is speaking in Erie, PA tonight.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a much anticipated speech because he's going to be talking, I would imagine, about what's happening to him legally.
Well, yeah, and he says, that he intends to run even if it's from behind bars, and he'll rule from behind bars. Because the way they're talking, it's imminent. And now I was reading, I woke up in the middle of the night, and then you start reading news stories. And and besides the indictments we hear about, they're talking about bringing up another indictment because of something he said that they didn't like. And I'm going like, well, there it is. The speech police, the thought police, like the old police song, the dream police, they want you to listen to what they have to say and shut up.
Okay.
If you don't listen to them and talk the way they talk, well, I'm sorry, but that doesn't go with our rules. We're going to have to indict you and lock you up. I mean, this is getting old.
But
and when are the people going to get tired of it?
You don't hear a lot about this stuff, but they're taking some blows on the left. I mean, for example, I guess up in New York, this didn't get a lot of news coverage, but this guy Bragg had gone after Melania Trump's emails. And this judge, who is kind of in the left's back pocket, he surprised everybody by denying the request for those emails. Alvin Bragg had asked for Melania's her emails, and it's part of his lawfare suit. I like that lawfare. They're using law and warfare, and they combine the two. And the Supreme Court Judge Juan Merchan, who's been said to be a Clinton supporter and an Obama supporter and a guy who's loyal to the left, he said, no, you cannot have her emails. That's a step too far. You made the request too broad. So they're not talking about that much on MSNBC or CNN. They're kind of keeping that hush-hush because it's another loss. In the same week, there's that loss, there's Hunter's loss. They say that Joe has left for Delaware and the beaches, and he's going to spend the next 10 days hanging around the beach while his minions do their best to make things difficult for President Trump. This guy Biden, you may say he's an old doddering fool, but he's a mean old doddering fool, okay?
Yeah, he is an SOB. And if you look up SOB, Joe Biden's picture is there. If it's not, I think they're thinking about putting it there because and the devil incarnate too, because that guy is pure evil. He is rotten to the core. But, and you talked about lawfare, it's a new term, but it's a new term to an age-old trick. All this deception, denial, everything that you hear and see going on. How can that be? Well, it goes back to the 1700s. And I guess it was what were the Democrats then really aren't patriots. And this is from an old law that allows that kind of activity to go on because they say it's all fair in politics. And that being the case, that needs to go back because it was used in the 1700s, the 1800s, being used widely now. So it's been around for a long time, which tells you that even though we sought out to build, something new, and it was, the big experiment of America, corruption creeped in early on. And it's had time to fester and get bigger and bigger and bigger to what it is today, We need to go and pluck it out, change those rules, change that law, and get this crap done with, because this is, I'm not going to say the word, but BS is what it falls under.
You know, I got to tell you, I've said this many times on the show, that if they don't fix what happened in 2020, it's going to happen again in 2024. It's just logical. If they had it working for them in 2020 and they stole the election and they used a version of it again in 2022, thus explains what happened in Pennsylvania, you know, with Fetterman being the senator as opposed to Dr. Oz. I mean, we had a guy who was literally mentally incapacitated, made a senator in Pennsylvania. In the meantime, a world-renowned cardiovascular surgeon and television personality who spoke of common sense things, he lost to this guy who couldn't complete a sentence. Come on, folks. You know as well as I do, that's nonsense.
And where is Fetterman these days? I was thinking about this last night.
Well,
you know,
they say
we haven't heard from him.
They say he's going to be the spokesperson for, listen to this, the depressed. The spokesperson for the depressed.
Oh, come on.
That's what they're going to try to.
Well, they're going to give him a cause.
Yes.
Because if they give him a cause,
Absolutely.
he's empowered. He is protected then. You know, that's what all this crap is about, inclusion and protection. And, you know, every generation throughout history, they've always tried to make their mark in the sand to say, I was here. You hear people go, I want to travel to all 50 states so I can leave my footprint. As generations go, they want to leave their footprint. Hence, we have the transgender generation, the kids that say, like Dylan Mulvaney, well, you know, my mom, when I contacted her, or I told her at 4 that I think I was a girl, and Mom told him, no, God doesn't make mistakes. I'm going to ask you right now, go back to when you were 4 years old. Do you remember anything your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, or you said at 4 years of age?
No, as a matter of fact, I don't remember what I said when I was 14 or 24.
Exactly.
Or 34
so
for that
this
matter.
is BS. This guy is, look, he documented on TikTok his transition into womanhood, and they say, oh, yes, he's a woman now, and he's going to go talk about being a woman. Well, he didn't actually. I thought he did, but he didn't get the transgender transformation. Mm-hmm. He got a facelift. He is not a woman. So if he believed he was a woman, why didn't he go all the way? Unless what he was really after, and this is what he was doing, because during that time on TikTok when he was getting his facelift and how to do his makeup.
Did he get his perpetual smile put in place?
Well, unfortunately, it's all teeth. It's like a great smile. Hi, you're dealing with me, and I'm a girl.
Does he smile?
Girls smile like this,
Does he smile everywhere he goes now?
I mean, yeah, but you know, he got $1 million in endorsements for that, and you know, the company that represents him to go out and publicly speak.
Yeah,
he gets $40,000 for 30 minutes of work. It's all hype. He killed a company in 2 minutes with a video, which that was their fault. But now Budweiser is having to lay off not 5 or 10 employees,
2%. 2% of their employees are being laid off. I think they said 350 employees nationally are losing their jobs.
And trust me, it's going to get bigger because the boycott continues. And when you heard what I just said, you know, look, if you are really a transgender, if you're a woman's right person, if you are gay, LGBTQ in any way, Dylan is, what do they call that? A poser? He is a poser. He's a phony, and he's getting rich off of your platform. And that is bogus. You know, I mean, I could sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to come up with a new identity that I'm going to stand by. If he's a transgender and entitled, then I'm a stay gender and I'm entitled.
Stay gender? I like that. Stay gender is a what?
I'm not going to change anything. I'm happy with what I am.
I like that. I think
I was
we should
assigned a male. I'm going to stay a male. I'm a stay gender.
We got to get you a beer company endorsement or something like that.
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah, I like it.
Blue. Yeah, aren't they in San Antonio?
Bill Knight.
They started in Milwaukee. They were sold overseas. They came back. They're an American beer. They're red, white, and blue. They used to be just Pabst beer, but then at a county fair, they won
$18.99. I think
they won the blue ribbon, so they became Pabst Blue Ribbon beer, and it's not a bad beer.
I think you could be a terrific spokesperson. The stage
I think
gender,
so too.
America's first stage gender, Bill Knight. I like it.
I'm
it has
a stage
certain
gender,
je ne
and I
sais
drink
quoi.
Pabst Blue Ribbon, and I'm proud of being my friends having being rednecks, having White Sox and Blue Ribbon beer. There you go.
You know, speaking of beer, Bud Light hasn't really apologized. They
won't.
They have come out with flags and commercials that pretend that they're all American and everybody's beer, but they still haven't come out and said, and they don't have to say it specifically. If they were just to say, you know, sometimes we're friends. We're friends with our customers, and sometimes friends make a mistake. And we'd like to think that when friends make a mistake, because we are Americans, we can forgive them for those mistakes.
There was nothing wrong with them saying, hey, we salute everybody. You know, we don't care. We don't judge.
You know what they did do? They got rid of the marketing director, the young woman.
Too late.
Yeah, no,
late.
She comes out and she does this interview saying, well, I'm going to rip the whole company image apart and make it, forget this old boy beer school, college thing. We're going to completely turn it upside down. And she did. She did. How much did they lose? Billions so far. Billions in revenue.
I mean, they destroyed a company. I remember going back a few years, I used to love to drink Budweiser. I don't touch it. Now, I don't really drink a lot of beers, but Budweiser was one, and I was an aficionado on the brewing companies that brewed the beer. I could tell you without looking at where that beer was, like if it was from Jacksonville, Florida, or if it was from
Pittsburgh,
Houston, Texas. No, I'm talking about Budweiser.
Oh, okay.
Or Houston, Texas.
Oh, you could tell where the breweries were.
Yeah. Or if it was from St. Louis, Missouri, I knew by the taste of the beer where it was from. I didn't like the Jacksonville beer because it was a newer brewery.
Different water.
The kettle hadn't fermented in, and the water was different. Houston was better, but the best was the old line original company with the water that they used. And, you know, those things ferment into that copper kettle.
Yeah, right.
It is. And when I went to the store, you'd sit there and see me and a buddy of mine, a manager of mine. We'd sit there on the weekends and we'd, talk about things, and we'd sit there with our Budweisers. But when we went to the store to get a case of beer, let's take a look. All right, we're good. That's Houston. Wait. Here's some St. Louis. Let's get the St. Louis. That was
seriously, you were that much into it.
Yeah. But hey.
See, I was a little different. I would go into the liquor store, into the, whatever, and I would go over to where the beer was being sold, and I would just grab a 6-pack of Leaf. I mean, I would just, let's see, that's beer? Good. All right, fine.
I had a friend one time, and he got fired from his job, and I said, man, that sucks, man. I said, what are you going to do? He goes, I don't know. I got $3 in my pocket, and that's all the money I got. Now, he was pretty creative in getting stuff. He goes, I got to get drunk. I'm going, you're not going to get drunk in $3. I'll be damned if he didn't come back with a 6-pack of beer. It was a brand I never heard of.
Oh, I know. But
he was blitzed about halfway through it, so I was like going, well, okay.
You got to be so careful with some of those cheap beers. Holy smokes.
And he had a job on Monday after he got sober. He made a few phone calls and boom.
Old Groggenschloss beer, the only beer with the foam on the bottom. Anyway. Anyway, interesting thing happened. Nobody's talking about this either. It's just under the radar news, so we're going to tell you about it. On March 3rd, an illegal biolab was discovered in a believed to be vacant building in Reedley, California, in Fresno County. City code enforcement stumbled upon the building in December of 2022. Now, mind you, they actually went there on March 3rd. We're finding out about this, end of July?
Yeah, a little
I mean,
slow.
someone trying to cover this up. But in March, they obtained a warrant to inspect the property. And in April, the Fresno County Department of Public Health ordered an inspection of the facility. Investigators inspected the building. They inspected the building that contained the lab in July. So, okay, I got the order wrong. They found out about this building in March, and they didn't do the inspection until July. I don't know why it took them that long to find the building and then do the inspection. Why they didn't go right in that day is beyond me. But, some bureaucrat was trying to stall something somewhere. They found a room used to make COVID-19 tests and pregnancy tests. They also found over 35 freezers and refrigeration units that contain thousands of bodily fluids, serums, tissues, and other medical items. And it goes on and on. But do you know who owned this lab that had all these
this
diseases?
is going to be good. Okay.
The Chinese.
Of course.
It was an unregistered pharmaceutical lab in the Fresno County area in California, and they were messing around with COVID. They had other things they were working on, too.
Well, you know what? I got a buddy out there. He listens.
They had chlamydia, E. coli, streptococcus, pneumonia, hepatitis B and C, herpes 1 and 2, and rubella. All of these things were being tested in this lab. Did you hear what I said? E. coli, streptococcus, pneumonia, hepatitis B and C, herpes 1 and 2, and rubella. They were messing around with stuff. This was an unregistered lab. And, I mean, if they found this one...
How many more are there?
Exactly.
And chlamydia is a sexual disease. And why are they messing with those deadly drugs and a sexual disease?
Well, let's say you want something to spread really fast. You develop it, and then you spread it. You get someone to unknowingly, unwittingly. This may sound a bit deep, but if you wanted to spread it, you could develop this thing. You could put it in condoms. Pass condoms around to the homeless. You know what I'm saying?
You could do that, but you know what? I mean, you could just you could infect a few people, and you sit there and promote the 60s and the 70s again, the
free
swinging
love.
60s.
Yeah.
Free love, when everybody was doing everybody. And, we didn't used to do that. Then we did it. And then, I don't know.
My question is, that was Fresno. That was Reedley Township in Fresno.
My hometown, yeah.
Really? Is that close to where you grew up?
Reedley? I know where Reedley is. Yeah, I know where Reedley is.
I mean, it sounds like an all-American, little town that you would never find a Chinese lab in. My question is, are they in other places around the country? Are they in,
Absolutely.
like New Bedford, Massachusetts, or are they in Taunton? I mean, they are so under the radar, and this guy and his administration have allowed this. They have allowed this. We talk about all of these Chinese illegals who have come across the border, and nobody is talking about this. It's a fact. They found a bunch of Chinese military-aged men in, I believe, Guatemala, and they were preparing themselves for their trip into America, and they were doing a ritual. I don't understand what this ritual is all about, but it involved drinking chicken blood, raw chicken blood. Apparently, it's a sign of rite of passage or something like that. And have they
been down to New Orleans? Because that's what the Witch Queen Swamp Lady.
Well, I don't know.
Is drink the chicken blood.
I don't know where they got this routine from, but there is. And then these people go north through Mexico and into the United States. And they're here right now. I mean, they could be down the street from where you are, and you wouldn't know. I was reading a story today about how some business owner is complaining in some normal American town about how these illegals are not only causing problems in his business, but they're actually giving him trouble, personal trouble. They're not just here and being under the radar. They're being very aggressive.
Yeah, aggressive under the radar. You talk about the illegals here and the Chinese, and we're worried about war with them. And I guess we're actually preparing to go to war with them too. Now, they say on a technological point of view, we will annihilate them. It'll be a cakewalk. And I'm going, don't get too overconfident. And one thing that the Chinese and, well, you got The Art of War, Sun Tzu or whatever it was.
Right.
He wrote the book. And if you've ever read it, you can use it in business. I have that book here somewhere too. There it is. The Art of War.
Right.
And, when you read that, it doesn't matter how mighty our war machine is. That's the
a lot of it
instruction
is
book.
patience and letting your opponent become off balance. And
you're going to conquer from within. You have moles inside. And well, there you go. And I mean, if you get a chance, you can pick it up for $5 or $8. The Art of War. Read it from cover to cover. There's a condensed down version, a little red book with in the front it says The Art of War in English, Sun Tzu, and then on the back it has it written in Chinese. But you can apply it to your life too.
And this is a book that was written centuries ago. This was not a book that was written last year or a couple of decades ago. This was written centuries ago.
Many of our generals, when they've gone to military training, they bring this book out.
You know
and
who's
say,
a fan of that book?
Read the damn.
President Trump.
Yeah.
He's a fan of the book.
Because he uses it in business. It tells you how to have the high ground, what to do, how to go. If you look at his book, it was probably based off of The Art of War.
Well, other things that are happening, we should point out, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is doing a terrific job running for the presidency, and he's building up his following, and he's becoming a serious contender in the Democratic arena. But the thing is, they're not happy about it in the Biden camp. So Robert F. Kennedy applied for Secret Service protection because he's a 2024 presidential candidate. He's reached certain levels as far as the criteria to have Secret Service protection. He's passed them, supposedly. And, he even said, Robert F. Kennedy, since the assassination of my father in 1968, candidates for the president are provided Secret Service protection. Then he says, but not me, he said. He said Mayorkas. Now, I thought that the Secretary of the Treasury was responsible, but apparently when Homeland Security became a reality, they transferred that authority over to the Director of Homeland Security. And Mayorkas, that fool, that lying sack of Jawea, the guy who goes in front of Congress constantly and tells everybody that the border is secure and then smirks because he knows he's lying and Congress knows he's lying, but nobody does a damn thing. But this guy, Mayorkas, he's the guy who denied Robert F. Kennedy the protection. He said, no, you can't have protection. So let's just examine for a second what it means not to have protection. When you have the Secret Service protecting you, they can do things like, carry a gun on an airplane. They can literally walk by security at an airport and not be scanned because they are Secret Service agents and they're doing their duty. They can carry a weapon. They have certain rules that are waived for them because of their position, because they're Secret Service. Another thing is cost. I heard this yesterday. The cost of a Secret Service, of security protection for a president, for a candidate, can be $1 million a week. $1 million a week. So if you're running for the presidency where every dime counts, just ask Ron DeSantis, because he just laid off, 38 of his people because of the cost of his candidacy, and it's not performing like it was supposed to. Robert F. Kennedy could probably afford it. He's a very wealthy man, but do you want to keep putting $1 million a week into your protection detail? And
if you want to stay alive. But you know what? I think you can actually. Can you not contract private security?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. It's $1 million. It would cost private security $1 million a week.
Okay, but could some group out there sit there and step forward and say, we'll protect you, and they be vetted and they could protect them.
You mean volunteer their protection services?
Yeah, the Democrats would say it's a paramilitary group or vigilantes or this or that. But either way, there are militias out there that are.
I think, and I could be wrong, but I think there's a certain level of professionalism involved in the protection of a candidate that we just don't see. The advanced people that go out and scout all of the different angles so that when a guy goes out on a podium, don't think for 1 second tonight when you see President Trump on the podium that his advanced people haven't gone to that venue and gone to every different angle and location and made sure it was clear. And the ones they weren't confident about, they're going to have people stationed there tonight.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you ever go to a Trump rally and you see a nearby building, you'll see 2 or 3 snipers up on the building or the surrounding buildings. They have them up there, and there's one person that's just constantly surveilling and talking to all the other players that are up there watching because they are prepared to take somebody out.
Yeah.
But that was last time I was at a Trump rally was, the one it was here in town. It was out at the airport. And, there were a lot of people there, and it was a big crowd. And that was what I was surprised to see.
But I think that it's cost prohibitive for a lot of people to have private security protect them. And I think to have security volunteers to take care of your protection is really playing it fast and loose. It's not the level of protection you're going to want as a presidential candidate. And the thing that gets me is that, he's the son of an assassinated presidential candidate. And there are people out there, there are nuts out there that might think it'd be cool to carry on a tradition.
Yeah.
It's
a family tradition. Yeah.
And this guy, Mayorkas, by the way, this evil SOB Mayorkas, he knows this. He's thought about this. And he's decided, to hell with him. I don't care what happens to him. Just like he decided that the border isn't important. I don't care who comes into the country. My goal is to let as many in as possible flood the zone, and I'm a happy man. Forget the fact that all these people are dying from fentanyl overdoses and that you have illegals causing problems in different cities. Forget about that. Forget that they're in Chicago holding up signs saying we demand jobs and a better place to live. These are people who shouldn't even be in this country. They are illegals. I mean, they don't call them that anymore. They call them undocumented aliens. No, They're illegals. They are violating our laws. But yet they're here demanding stuff from us. And, if Biden and the left get their way, they'll get you to pay for more stuff for these people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hey, it's not his money. It's your money.
Yeah.
His money is in a bank offshore. And it's really, how he got that money, that's a whole different story. Bill Stevenson, Jill's ex.
Oh, yes. Yes, I have a tape here. Greg Kelly had him on for an interview a couple of nights ago, and it was really good. Now, we can do a little up front here. Bill Stevenson was Jill Biden's first husband,
Well, she was Joe's babysitter. No.
Yeah. She was Joe's babysitter. Yeah.
And Joe had a thing for the babysitter. Now, she also helped him with his campaign, and they got very close. Now, Bill became aware that something was going on when he called for his wife and found out that she was in her vet. She had a nice Corvette, and it was in an accident. Well, who was driving? Joe was driving. Now,
this is the same guy who you look at now, see this doddering old fool. He was a slick son of a gun back then.
Yeah, and she was not a good woman. She was obviously cheating on her husband. She was not good. And Joe, his wife, she apparently knew about it. She had an automobile accident, which I question sometimes as to everything about it, where, kids were hurt. She had the kids in the car, and she had an accident, which I believe was her fault. And it was like it was a deliberate accident. She lost her life. But I'm not accusing anything of anything. I'm just saying, look at the facts, take a look at it. back up a little bit, and you're going to smell something rotten in this story. But we fast forward now to Bill Stevenson and what he's saying.
And we're back with Delaware businessman Bill Stevenson, who, yes, as we mentioned in the previous block, was married to the current First Lady, Jill Biden, back in the 1970s. Now, they got divorced, and you know what led up to the divorce, but it was actually somewhat amicable. But then things got very hot for Bill Stevenson in Delaware, hot in a bad way. Now, Bill, if you don't mind, let me take us through this. The Stone Balloon is the place that you ran, an amazing kind of legendary pub in Wilmington. All kinds of great music acts showed up there, Bruce Springsteen and others. Now, at one point, you got in trouble in 1982. But when people see this, let's go through some court papers here. On April 21st, 1982, defendants were arraigned in this court for failing to make payments to the account for the first quarter of 1982. You're the defendant along with your brother. The first quarter of 1982, failing to make payment. How much money was not paid? $8,266. Now, this is federal court, and you were charged with a felony. And this is in April of 1982 for the first quarter. Just to review, January, February, and March, 3 months make a quarter. And you were charged in April. Bill Stevenson, I've never heard of something happening quite so fast. It seems like maybe they were out to get you.
You think?
What do you think? Yeah.
Listen, this was devastating, and I'll tell you how it happened. We went to court because Jill turned down $1 million settlement from me. She was about 22, going on 23. We were only married 4 years at that point. We're in this vicious divorce trial. I turn around, try to make it as easy as possible for her. I give her her Corvette. I provide a townhouse for her. I did everything I could to make sure that she was happy because I still cared about her. And to this day, I still care about her, to be perfectly honest, and everybody around me knows that. My problem is with Joe Biden. What he did was, right before the divorce trial, he switches law firms to his old law firm, a gentleman named Melvin Monson. For 3 days, they bashed me. They bashed me in front of the IRS. They bashed me in front of the Department of Justice. And I said, what in the world and why is this happening? The bottom line is I won everything. I had given her quite a bit, and they ruled that her education at that point, which was her master's degree going on to the doctorate degree, that she had enough. She actually owed me a little bit of money at the end of the court thing, which was bizarre. My lawyer stood up and said, no, we don't want it. Here's what happened. They appealed. I owned a couple houses with her. But the problem was I owned our big house and my home at the beach in my company's name. So they sued me for one of the houses. It took 6 years to resolve that. And this is when my problem started. In 1982, they lost the house, and Jill had to come to the lawyer's office and sign off the deed of a house in downtown Newark. It wasn't even our beautiful home in Oakasson or my home at the beach that I owned corporately with friends. It was a house that was worth $35,000, $40,000, and now it's worth a fortune. But here is where the problem was. Frankie Biden of the Biden crime family comes up to me and he goes, give her the house or you're going to have serious problems. I looked at Frankie and I said, what, are you threatening me? And needless to say, about 2 months later, my brother and I were indicted for that tax charge for $8,200.
You know, on the surface, it is crazy. Now, and you're hearing this. You heard you say you heard a threat from Frank Biden. Those dates are crazy. 1 week later, Delaware is a small state. Joe Biden is like the Prince of Delaware in a way, right? Very powerful. You think that he essentially ordered this? Get Bill Stevenson.
I not only think it, I know it. I'll tell you right now, this is what he's using now, but we'll get to that in a minute. In 1982, my brother and I were charged for $8,200. At that point, the bar in the first 10 years of business had already grossed over $30 million, and we had generated over $5 million in taxes. I could not believe the power of Joe Biden and the Department of Justice. I couldn't believe it, that I could be indicted for $8,000. Now, here's the tragedy. My brother pleaded guilty. It broke us up forever. It's just within the last month that we're talking again. It broke my heart. He pleaded guilty. He took the fall. And in the newspaper, Judge Murray Schwartz turned around in the Wilmington News Journal and said, I sentenced the wrong brother. So I knew that there was something coming for me in the future.
So as we look at where we are today, Hunter Biden in court today. Now, granted, there was no deal. It didn't actually happen, but we anticipated it. And so far, the government has charged him with 2 misdemeanor counts, a 5-year investigation. They come up with 2 misdemeanors. It was an 8-day investigation. They come up with a felony. This
2
is
felonies, a felony for me and a felony for my brother. That's why he pleaded guilty.
It is totally wild to look at these, to look at the comparison. And now I want your thoughts on President Trump, because it seems actually like you know what they did to you. I know what they're doing to President Trump. It's all been politicized. And just like they're going after him now, they went after you in the 1970s, 1980s, and perhaps beyond.
Greg, I thank God that you saw a story about me that you have shown some pictures on a couple months ago. And I called you and I said, thank you for being positive. It's hard to believe what they're doing to President Trump right now. And that's why I came to you and you listened to my story. He is doing Joe Biden, our president, right? He lives 2 miles from me. Today, I'm 2 miles from the courtroom where the Hunter deal fell apart. And he is doing the exact same thing. I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed somebody just to listen to me, to tell them what happened to me because I got on the wrong side of the Biden family. After spoiling Jill for 5 years, I was on the wrong side of them, and they have literally come after me for 35 years in a row. One little thing after another. I was charged with an $8,000 car loan on a BMW that was owned by my business that I had just sold. I mean, it's been tragic. I can't let them do this to a president that I love and respect. I can't let them do this to our country. This is why I've come forward. This is the only reason I've come forward. It's like I said, nothing about the divorce, no bitterness. But Jimmy, Frankie, and President Biden are very dangerous, and it's tragic. I can't let them do what they did to me, President Trump. I can't do it.
Bill, I know you've led quite a life, actually, and numerous businesses, and you're very entrepreneurial, and you were an athlete of some renown nationally. You've put your thoughts together in a book, in some sort of manuscript. I know you've kind of had it for a while. When can people possibly read your story?
We're talking about mid-September to early October. I'm not promoting the book, Greg. I'm promoting what the Bidens did to me and what they're doing to our former president and what they're doing to the country. I don't even know this guy's thoughts anymore. I feel like he's a different person. You have to remember, I've known him since 1971, and I have followed him. I've never said anything. I've never spoken out. In my first book, The Stone Balloon, The Early Years, I say we drifted apart. My new book is going to be called The Bidens, The Early Years. And I am just telling a story of facts with proof, with pictures. And I think people are going to be surprised. But really, this isn't about the book. This is about what's going on right now in this country. Today, 2 miles from here, the Hunter plea deal fell apart. I was ecstatic all day. I couldn't believe it that it fell apart, because you know what's happening as of today? The tide is turning. Now everybody is hearing the story. The national news media has ignored them for years. They've let them get away with murder for years. And I'm just so glad that I'm able to tell my story.
It's quite a story. Bill Stevenson, we thank you for joining us, and to be continued. Many thanks, sir. All the best to you and your wife, Linda, okay?
God bless you, Greg, and God bless everybody at Newsmax. I just thank you for letting me get this out.
Of course, of course. We thank you.
That's Greg Kelly and Bill Stevenson, the first husband of Jill Biden, and he paints a picture of a corrupt and evil crime family running our administration right now, running our government. I'm sorry, Bill, I had your mic off. Go ahead.
I believe him, and I think he needs to be careful because it is an evil, corrupt family, and based on things I've seen and other people like Joe in the administration, or in close to the administration, bad things happen to people that speak out against the Bidens or the Clintons or anybody or the Obamas.
Well, what's happening right
works.
now as we speak right now. A witness who's scheduled to speak, I believe, Monday or Tuesday, Devin Archer. He was a former Hunter Biden business partner. He's supposed to speak in front of Congress the beginning of next week. I think it's Monday. Well, he's been threatened. He's been threatened, and his family has been threatened, and they're in protective custody right now, squirreled away in a private location, and they're going to be in this location until he's finished testifying. Think about that.
The mob would be kind of in awe at what these guys are doing, threatening, hey, your family's not going to do too well if you don't straighten up and get in line. Joe is the same kind of guy. And that 8K thing, I can tell you right now, I know personally, they will not indict you over $8,000. They might garnish something of your assets or, go after you that way, but they're not going to do anything vehement like that unless somebody on high comes down, because they're not going to, you might sneeze at $8,000 and other people might sneeze at it, other people won't. But the point is, it's not a big enough thing for them to go after.
The other thing I'm really paying attention to, and it's got my interest, is, who is really behind Biden? Because even when Biden was, quote, selling his influence, whose influence was he selling? He was selling Barack Obama's influence, really, because he was only the vice president, Biden. And that means that Barack Obama had to be in on it. Maybe the big guy they're talking about isn't Joe Biden. Maybe the big guy is Barack Obama. We don't know. But he's being protected in more ways than one. For example, this past week, his chef, personal chef, drowned on Martha's Vineyard. First reports came out and said the Obamas were not on Martha's Vineyard at the time. And then they had to amend that. And they said, well, they were at the mansion on Martha's Vineyard at the time. Then they had to amend that and said, well, they weren't in the house on Martha's Vineyard at the time. They were in town. Now, if you've been to Martha's Vineyard, you can spit from one end of the island to the other. I mean, you can be in Vineyard Haven and get to Edgartown in about 15 minutes. It's not a big island. So if they weren't in the house, they were in town, they make it sound like they drove into New York. No, if they went to Edgartown, it was a hop, skip, and a jump. They could have been there in 5 minutes from their house. They also said that this guy was out, Campbell was out paddleboarding on a pond by himself. Then they had to amend that and say, wait a second, he was out with some other guy. Then they said the phone call came from the Obama mansion. Then they had to amend that and said, well, no, actually it came from the landing where they launched the paddleboard. And then they had to say, amend it and say, not only did it come from the landing, but it came from a woman. They don't identify the woman. They don't say who it was, but it was a woman who called the police. And they said that the guy who was out paddleboarding with Campbell just wasn't fast enough to get to him before he drowned. You know, you would think that at the very least this guy would have grabbed hold of the paddleboard. I'm just saying, and use it as a float. Maybe he couldn't reach it. Maybe he had fallen too far away. I don't know. But then a witness said they pointed out exactly where this guy went under. And by the way, they said this guy was struggling to stay afloat like he was being pulled under, and he had no control. That's what they said. So the police went out there. They went diving for him. It's 12 feet of water, maybe 8 to 12 feet of water. They said it should have taken 5 minutes to find the body. It took them hours to find the body. And so all I'm saying, folks, is the story doesn't jive. A lot of it seems to be contrived. I think we're being jerked around again. There's something going on here that we don't know about. You know, this is the second personal chef to die. I'm just saying, you know, I
don't burn the souffle in the Obama mansion. I guess I don't know.
I guess so.
Boy,
but this guy, he seemed like a nice guy, a handsome guy. He seemed like he was a good cook, had great credentials. But you know, he was the personal chef, which means that he was around the Obamas. He was in their personal life. What did he see?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe Obama was up paddleboarding with him.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe Michelle was the one who called the police. I'm just saying.
And maybe Obama couldn't save him, and what's wrong with that? Unless there was something else going on, and then
all bets are off. Yep.
All bets are off, and don't ask me.
Well, anyway, I don't think we're being told this. Oh, the other thing I should point out is on the police log of calls that they had to go to during the course of the day, they would list the call and the time, and they would list where it happened, and they would list what happened, like, you know, car accident or break-in or whatever. But in this incident, they left that part blank. So on the whole sheet of incidents for that day, everything's filled in except for the one section that describes what happened on that call, and they didn't fill it in. So who are they hiding? What are they hiding? Why can't they be straight with us? Every part of this story has been massaged. You know? I don't know. Maybe it's a simple case of the guy who went out and drowned, and that's that. But then again, maybe it isn't. And I got to tell you this much: if it happened at your house or my house, the investigation would be a lot more, a lot more detailed. They would be all over.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Also, you see where the Senate Republicans have introduced a measure that would forbid the flying of any flag except the American flag over government buildings. Only one Democrat voted for it, and it missed passage by just one vote. So they have a bill that says the only flag that can be flown on an American government building is an American flag, which makes total sense to us because we're kind of rational people. And most of the Democrats said, "Nah, we're not in favor of that because we like having pride flags on the White House." And
could you fly a Chinese flag up there?
You sure could.
Let's do it.
You could do
maybe that'll wake America up.
You could do a Chinese flag. You can do a Canadian flag. You can do a Russian flag.
I think we ought to go ahead and run up the Chinese flag and the Russian flag right along with, maybe even above the American flag, and maybe America will wake up and kick some ass.
Well, has your organization got a new flag yet? Have you designed a flag for your new gender? What was that?
My state gender, yeah.
The state gender. Are you going to have a state gender flag?
I don't know, but I think we should have a flag.
I think so, too.
I think if anybody wants to be join the state gender, you can be man or woman.
That's right.
You know, it doesn't matter. You're a state gender, and you should contact us.
That's exactly
As a matter
right.
of fact, we'll hold votes.
I'm a stage
And,
engine, Bill.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So there's two.
See, we have 2 members now, and we are growing. Damn it! We're going to get big.
By the
Real
second.
big.
By the second. Amazing. You see where federal authorities are expressing high skepticism over a firm's nearly $1 billion land acquisition near Travis Air Force Base? This is mind-boggling, okay? Travis Air Force Base, a very secure government Air Force base, and it's out in California. And what's happened is this private company bought up this land all around. And by the way, the land isn't terribly valuable on face value. It's kind of like desolate. It's not like you're going to build any tracts of homes there, right? But they spent over $1 billion buying this property. And then after they did this, it sort of came to the attention of the government like, hey, wait a second. We have new owners, new neighbors? What's going on here? You would think that they would be on top of who's next door,
Well,
24/7, right?
Maybe there ought to be an amendment that's passed that any land that is adjacent to or near federal government property, if it goes for sale, the ownership of whoever buys it has to be properly vetted. And
Yes.
if they say no, guess what?
They don't get
it's
a
no
chance.
deal.
That's exactly what should happen. You would have thought that would have been the logical thing 30 years ago, 50 years ago. Apparently it's not. Amazing.
So there's nothing sacred in this country.
Nope. Also, the Wagner forces, that group of with I think the Azov Battalion is part of it. Wagner is that mercenary group of Ukrainian soldiers who, remember when they for a while they were going towards Moscow and they were afraid that they were going to attack Moscow, and then they stopped and they came to some resolution and they stopped. Now apparently they're amassing along the border to Poland, and it looks like they're preparing to go to war with NATO countries because Poland has sent troops to their border, and it's gotten the Russians all. I mean, it is a mess. The thing is, there is so much going on in that area. There's going to be an accident. Somebody's going to do something by mistake and start World War III because these bloody fools want a war. I mean, it's as simple as that. If Biden and his cronies in Washington wanted to stop what's happening in the Ukraine, they could stop it. They could have everybody sit down for peace talks and probably settle this thing, but they want turmoil. They want a war. So while you and I are living our lives under the Damocles sword of World War III, Biden is sitting on the beach soaking up the rays for the next 10 days, perfectly aware of what he's done, and he doesn't care. And he expects you to vote for him again. By the way, I have another story. I'm not going to play it.
I was going to say we're running tight in time, probably.
Oliver Stone, the director, he's done a bunch of interesting movies. He did that movie JFK, which had a lot of people talking. A lot of people said it was nonsense, but he said some things there that I think were true. Oliver Stone has come out in an interview and said, I think the interview was with Russell Brand, and he said,
Right.
I made a mistake. I voted for Biden. I made a mistake. This is Oliver Stone. This is a notorious Hollywood liberal. He said, Biden's killing our country. I made a mistake. Maybe I'll play it on Monday if I can find it.
Sure.
Also, anything else? President Trump speaks tonight in Erie, Pennsylvania. This will be an important speech because he's going to be talking for the first time, essentially. I mean, he spoke last night at some dinner, I guess in Iowa, but the rally is going to be a chance for him to let his hair hang down and really say what he feels. And I think it's going to be an interesting speech. We'll just leave it at that.
And don't be surprised if today, this weekend, sometime, or Monday, they don't decide to go ahead and arrest Trump because they keep threatening it and waving it in the wind. So it's time for them to sit there and show their true colors so America can show their true colors. Because I don't think people are going to put up with it, at least not for long.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, if you would do us a favor, we'd appreciate it if you want to contact us. Our phone number, 833-538-7868. Tell your friends about the show, please. Spread the word. We're growing in leaps and bounds. And, of course, now that we have a new movement, the stage gender.
Stage gender. Yeah, that's very important. Join the movement.
That's right. You be a stage gender. You're wondering what a stage gender is? One more time, but what is a stage gender? Is somebody
stage gender means I'm just staying put. I'm not going to do anything. I like the way God made me. I'm a man.
I like that.
And if you're a man or a woman,
stage gender.
Stay what you are. Stay the course. Stay the road.
Oh, he's getting into it.
Stay the gender.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And drink Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. I don't, because it's the only beer that I think anymore that's American. I don't know.
Anyway, you have our email address. You want to spread that around too?
Mail at itsanotherday.com. It's mail at itsanotherday.com. Thank you very much.
I think we have done it for the day. I think we've just about run out of road here, but with a little bit of luck, we'll do it again on Monday. We should also point out that we're going to be taking some time next week, some personal time, because, if Congress can go out for a month,
we can too.
We can too.
Not a month, though.
We'll be running some. No, we'll be gone for a few days.
We'll be running. I miss everyone.
It's true. He starts to cry and gets very weepy.
I get very emotional for a big 6'2" guy. That's not good.
I know, but we will be doing some best of programs. We're not going to leave you in the lurch. We're going to give you some stuff to listen to while we're away. But we'll be back in the saddle again on Tuesday. But we're not going right away. We're going to be back on Monday. We'll be back this Tuesday. I think we'll do a show on Wednesday, and then we'll be gone Thursday, Friday, and Monday. And there'll be no weekend update. But we'll have best of out there. So.
And then we'll be back in the saddle again.
Out where the rest is a friend.
Yeah.
Who sang that? Was that
Gene Autry?
That's what it was. Yes, that's it. Right.
You used to always go into a pizza place that you love to have pizza and drink a beer, and all these people be real tight butt people, and I'd sit there and go, "Got a quarter? Yeah,
I'm back in the saddle."
I'd go over there. I'm back in the saddle again. I'd go drink my beer with my friends, and we'd laugh.
Hey, anyway, it's time for you to end with your normal but always interesting ending. Are you ready?
That thing I do?
Yeah.
I'm not original with it. I wasn't the first guy to do it.
To do the ending you're doing? Well, I mean, you do it so well, though. I think it's uniquely you. And by the way, Bill is a stage ender. I just want to put that one more time.
Yeah, I am a stage ender. I'm not changing anything. Well, except my underwear.
All right, that's good to hear. Just say goodbye, will you? Just say goodbye.
Hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.